All right, YouTubers. Thank you for joining us for this exciting episode. Are you excited about this episode?
Not really. I mean, it's not one of my favorite topics, I guess.
I'm excited about every episode because every episode is a chance that I get to spend with all these wonderful people.
That's very nice.
And so it's fantastic.
You're making me look bad.
So whatever episode it is, I don't even care what we're talking about. Even if it's just jelly beans. I think that's cool. I'm going to be with all these people.
You are awesome.
You are the reason we do all of this. So, what are we talking about today?
We are talking about stranger danger. It's not a great topic. I don't want to talk about this in a way, like talking about your kids getting kidnapped and stuff. Like, ooh.
There's perverts out there and people need to know it.
I know. I don't like to think about it that much, although I know that I have to, which is kind of what the episode is about.
Perverts is a go-to word in our house.
Yeah, I'm trying to change it.
Our girls talk about that all the time.
He looks like a pervert.
Watch out for perverts.
Oh, watch out. They're a pervert. It's a pervert. Oh my gosh. I'm like, stop saying that word.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are
a little overused.
Aware of the perverts out there. So, but part of that is how much do we share? How much do we not share? How much do we protect them versus give them crippling fear of everything and everyone around them?
Exactly.
So a little bit of a balance. We're going to explore that today as we get ready to dive into the episode.
It's 104.
Before we do that, though, we have had an already insanely busy week. 2 nights this week, 2 volleyball games. Luckily, no games tonight.
Yes, so I'm very thankful for that.
But
we get to look forward to our connection group tonight, which we always enjoy.
Your sister and her husband is in town.
Yep. And my sister's father-in-law as well. So the 3 of them got in late last night, and it was really fun to get to say hi. And after this recording, I'm going to go hang out with my sister.
And then you've got some goings on this weekend. You want to kind of fill everybody in on what you got going on this weekend?
Sure. This weekend, I am speaking at a ladies' retreat in Lutz, Florida, which is like on the outskirts of Tampa, I believe. And I'm really, really, really excited about it. I love talking to the ladies, and I'm just excited to see what God's going to do.
So that's Friday, Saturday. Then we dive right into church on Sunday. So another action-packed week around here at Ostercamp Studios, live in Palm Coast, Florida. Thank you for being a part of it. And we're going to dive right into recording episode 104. So hold on tight.
It's going to be a wild ride.
Gather around, everybody. It's time for a family meeting. The Family Meeting is a show that's all about family relationships.
Oh, my.
We're the Ostercamps. I'm Thomas. This is my wife, Lanita.
That was too far. That was too far. That's my sister's name.
Oh, no, but I spelled it with a I, not a Y.
Yeah, no. You just want to push the line. You just want to go further and further. And you're just you.
I'm just recording a podcast. I have no idea what you're talking about. I'm doing my best.
I'm doing my best not to punch you.
Is it working?
All right. Hello and welcome to our family. Welcome to episode 104 of the Family Meeting Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to discuss the balance of teaching our kids stranger danger, yet not creating a mindset of fear. So this is going to be a kind of an interesting podcast episode. It may not be really pleasant to think about, but it's something we as parents have to think about. There's a lot of danger out there that our children need to be protected from, but we also want them to live that innocent, happy, free-loving child's life that they should enjoy. So how do we create that balance?
It makes me think of Lost in Space. It was an old TV show, and then I think Netflix did a redo of it. And,
never seen it.
You've seen it.
I have seen it.
And the robot on there is like Danger Will Robinson.
Okay, yes.
Anytime there's danger around.
I never saw the old one.
That's kind of what I think about. I watched the old one with my mom. It was boring.
Okay. But the new one was pretty good. I watched a couple episodes at least. I think I watched like 3 episodes with you guys. It was
very interesting for all of our sci-fi fans out there. But I think of that Danger Will Robinson, and he had this robot around to protect him and anytime there was danger around.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we can't, and we really shouldn't be with our kids their entire life in every single moment.
Yes.
So we can't be that robot that's constantly there shouting danger and trying to protect them. We have to equip them to the best of our ability to pay attention, to be on guard, watch out for themselves, and at the same time be able to go out and fully function and not just be overwhelmed and crippled by fear.
Yes.
So our children are now 16, 15, 14, and 12 in a couple weeks. And this is something that we had to be more careful about when they were littler than we do now. Mm-hmm. You know, especially the older ones. They can understand the dangers without becoming terrified of going outside or seeing strangers. So our daughters walk our dog, and you know, they walk around the neighborhood and whatever else, and we're not right there with them. But when they were little, we wanted to teach them to be safe, yet be careful, because at those young ages, fear comes from every direction, and we didn't want to contribute to anxiety or fear. And it really is a delicate balance. Now, we got this episode idea from an interaction that Lysandra had at the store. You want to fill people in about that?
Yeah. So just the other day, Catherine and I were grocery shopping at Aldi, and like a 5-year-old girl, she had to be 5, maybe even 4-year-old girl or 5, came up to us and just started talking, like came right in our bubble. She was very, very close to us. She said, "Hi, my name is so-and-so, and I'm 5. Do you want to be my best friend?" And Catherine and I were both like completely taken back because we were focusing, we were crossing stuff off our list. We're always like trying to get in and out of Aldi as fast as we can, right? So we're like focused, and she completely startled us. And so we turned around and smiled at her and waved and, said, "Hi, nice to meet you." We were trying to be polite or whatever. And the second thing I did after trying to be kind to this little child is like, where is her parent? I started looking around. Where's your parent? You're talking to complete strangers in a grocery store.
Yeah.
And there's no adult around. So
that's my first thought too, is I'm looking around like, who does this kid belong to?
Yes. And finally, like, I spotted her father. I'm assuming it was her father, like way down at the other end of the aisle. He's shopping. He's not at all paying attention to her. Then this conversation with her continued for quite a long time, longer than what I was comfortable with, because I wanted to keep moving. But so we're now in a conversation with this 4 or 5-year-old, and he notices now, like we've been in this for a little bit, he notices that his child is talking to us, and he wasn't calling her back. He wasn't telling her, leave those people alone. He wasn't like, hey, come close to me. He wasn't reprimanding her for talking to strangers. He wasn't even looking at us like, sorry, she's kind of friendly, like he completely ignored the situation and just kept shopping.
It was like, peek real quick. Oh, she's not being kidnapped. Just let her be.
Turn back around.
Finding my raviolis or whatever he's doing.
Yeah. And one thought that I had was, if we, Catherine and I, were on the lookout to try to steal a child, this would be the child I'd try to take. This child would be so easy to just get to come into your car. She has no concept of being a little standoffish toward people she doesn't know. Her parent is not at all engaged. She would be an easy child to try to take. And that is frightening. Obviously, Catherine and I were there shopping for groceries, not children. So she was safe. But,
because I don't want any more kids.
I know, right? So it's just like, it was very dangerous. And she had not been trained in any way to be aware of strangers. And I felt legitimately concerned for her safety in the future. because I was just shocked that her father had no desire to teach her to stay close to him or beware of strangers, people you don't know. Because if you don't know someone, you certainly cannot trust them. Yeah. Some people you know and you can't trust.
Right.
How much more people that you don't know at all?
Well, and this story really got me thinking about my own childhood and thinking about, obviously, this parent or parents didn't have much of a conversation with this girl about it,
if any.
And I'm trying to think about my own childhood growing up and what my parents taught me. I don't remember being taught anything about like stranger danger.
Yeah, and tell everybody what kind of neighborhood you grew up in.
It was a pretty poor neighborhood. You know, a lot of drugs, gun violence, those sorts of things.
Were there multiple murders in your backyard alley area?
Yes. Yeah.
On your block, in your backyard in the alley.
Yep.
More than one.
Saw the SWAT team a bunch of times. Had people being chased by the cops running past us with guns. Mm-hmm. It was a rough neighborhood. So even though there wasn't conversation, you learn to watch out pretty quickly to try to evaluate a situation.
And were you just allowed to like leave your house and go over, like you had a park across the street from your house? Were you allowed to just cross 3rd Avenue and go to that park anytime you wanted?
We played it wasn't anytime we wanted, but we played outside a lot. We went to the park a lot. We rode our bikes all over the neighborhood. We went the few blocks up the street to the grocery store, me and my brother.
Did you have to get permission to go outside?
I'm trying to remember. At a certain age, we no longer did.
Was it like, we're going to go to the park, and then you could leave the park, go to your buddy's house, then go to the grocery store, and it didn't matter? Did you have to check in between times?
No, we didn't check in. We didn't check in.
So it was just like, well, I hope Thomas and Chris don't die.
Yeah. Yeah.
And hey,
we biked we biked all over the place. We did all kinds of things. There were a few times that certain things happened. We had some drunk guy try to rob us.
Oh my goodness.
But we were more afraid of my dad than this drunk dude. So we were like, no, we're not going home without my dad's money. Like, might as well kill me now because I ain't going out like that. And then we had a group of kids try to jump us one time when we were on our bikes. We had a few interesting interactions with the people in our neighborhood.
But no training to deal with it. It was just on-the-job training.
Not that I remember. Yeah. They may have when I was real young, and I just don't remember it. But I did learn in my neighborhood to kind of watch out for things. Like even now, I pay attention to where I am and who's around and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What about you? What were you taught?
I grew up in the sleepy little town of Walker, Iowa.
Lots to be on guard for.
Yeah. It was fabulous growing up there. It was so quiet. There was basically zero crime. Like, I remember one year when our house got egged at Halloween time, and that was the only crime I remember my entire life.
Horror.
Yes, that was it. Like, and my dad tracked down that kid and brought him to our home, and he had to scrub the eggs off of our home with a push broom as my dad stood back with his arms crossed and watched him.
Oh my gosh,
until
that's
it was
so
done.
Funny.
That was the crime.
So your dad did the vigilante thing, found the kid and brought him?
Absolutely. Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So that was the kind of home that I grew up in the kind of town.
Street justice.
Yes. Yes. Neighborhood watch.
Yeah.
So I was actually the kid who was afraid of absolutely everything, even though I lived in a very safe environment. We didn't actually lock our doors growing up, like at all, ever. Home or not home, the door was unlocked. The cars were unlocked. But in spite of that safety that I had, I was a terrified child, and I used to sleep with my shoes and my coat on. Like in the winter, I would sleep with my boots and my coat on, and I would have my backpack packed with my most favorite things in it in case of a house fire. I would sleep with the backpack in my bed. I even had one arm looped in one strap in my backpack just in case the house caught on fire. I could get out quickly.
Whoa, that's crazy. Like,
with all the most important things.
What spurred that on? Did you know somebody who had a house fire, or?
Yes, actually. So my dad was a volunteer firefighter. I'm just literally realizing this right now as you ask that question.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was.
He was a volunteer firefighter, and I forgot about this. There was an old lady who lived on a corner in our town, on the outskirts of the town, in a very old house, and her house caught on fire. Oh gosh, this is a horrible story. This is why I was afraid of house fires, though.
Yeah.
I'm like just figuring
this
out.
What happened to it? Did she die?
Yeah.
She did.
She did. So the house caught on fire, and the firemen came and were using the hoses like on the fire and to try to like get the flames down so they could go in and try to find the lady. And when it was all said and done, gosh, this is awful. They found her at the door of the house. They believe that this is what I was told when I was a child. That I think my dad was telling my mom this, and I was listening.
You overheard, yeah.
I overheard that they were literally like hosing the woman, and she couldn't get out because of the fire hoses. Like the water was keeping her in. So she was trying to get out of her house, and they were spraying her in. I don't know if that's accurate. That's what I remember from when I was like 5
Seems
to 8.
more likely that, smoke inhalation got her when she was trying to get out, but
I'm sure that that's true. But I have this picture even right now that I realize has been buried deep in my head for all these years of her, of this sweet old lady who I did know, who was like had her hands on the door trying to get out of the house, being sprayed with water into the flames. That's a horrible picture. I'm disturbed right now.
Yeah, but it seems like if the water it was that much on her, you're not going to be burned up in flames.
Yeah, I'm sure that I embellished all of this and fear took over, but I was a terrified child. So I would lay in bed at night and I would stare at the fire alarm above my bed on the ceiling, and I would stare at that blinking light, the red light, waiting in anticipation for the next blink. And every blink proved to me that it was still operational, that the battery hadn't died. So I was a terrified child, and then
I never thought about fire ever. I don't know if we had a fire alarm in the house. Seriously,
guess you didn't.
I honestly don't think we had a fire alarm in the house.
Oh my goodness. Well, fire safety was talked about because my dad was a fireman, and we even did some little fire safety training and stuff. And so that is so funny.
That's interesting. So now let's move that over to stranger danger.
So then JonBenet Ramsey was captured.
That was a big
Do you
deal,
remember that?
Yeah.
She and I are the exact same age.
I've watched a few documentaries on that.
So when JonBenet Ramsey was taken, and wasn't she Midwestern? Like, I feel like it was a state near us.
I forget where it was. I'd have to look it up now.
But that was covered in all the news stories, and I saw it on the news, and I was always very, very upset about it. Of course, she was blonde hair, blue-eyed. So was I.
Yeah.
Then my parents chose that time to give me the safety talk, which I think was good. It was appropriate, and it was right. And they weren't like terrifying, but I do remember very vividly my dad saying, if anyone takes you, you kick and scream and you start screaming as loud as you can. You're not my father. You're not my father. And somebody will come and help you. And so I remember like having the plan. But I don't think that that's why I was terrified. I think I was terrified because I was terrified.
Yeah.
Like I was just that kind of kid.
Yeah.
I was a
Most
fearful
definitely.
child.
I told the girls that if somebody tried to kidnap them, just to, like, as loudly as they could, say as many curse words as possible. Because think about what you're going to do as every adult when they hear a kid cuss. They turn like, what in the world is going on? And where is this kid's parents?
Yeah.
Like, that's the very first thing. But there was an instance just this past April, I think it was, where this 15-year-old girl was at an NBA basketball game with her dad, Dallas Mavericks, and she left to use the restroom, and she was abducted.
Oh my gosh.
At the NBA basketball game. There was like a group of, I can't remember if it was 6 women and 2 men, or 6 men and 2 women. Anyway, they abducted her, sex trafficking.
Oh my gosh.
And they were able to, a group was able to find her like 10 days later.
Oh my
But
goodness.
you're talking about a public place, teenage girl.
You feel kind of safe because you're like, there's so many people around.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's dangers out there, and we do feel it's important to keep your children safe in public spaces and use wisdom in protecting them from other people. And there are, I think about this girl. It literally just happened. There are wicked people out there who are looking for opportunities to take children. And it's our job as parents to keep our children safe. And there are a couple of tips to teach your children while they're young. And just thinking about this instance that happened not long ago with this teenage girl, even now, when we go anywhere, like our kids don't use the restroom alone. Mm-hmm. Anywhere. Unless I'm literally sitting and I can see the women's restroom from where I am. They've always gone with either you or mm-hmm. now that they're older, they go with at least one of their sisters. Mm-hmm. But we need to start teaching them even when they're young. You don't want to wait. Teaching stranger danger is a critical part of a child's development in the world that we live in today. Just like you teach your children, at least you should, look both ways when you cross the street. Mm-hmm. Even if it's a one-way, because that's just the society we live in, right? It's just yes. the world of bad driving. Look both ways. And certainly before they begin school, you have to start teaching them about strangers.
I am always shocked when I am driving through a neighborhood that has like an elementary school, and I am watching what has to be 5-year-olds walk by themselves to school.
That used to be just the way it was. Like people didn't even think twice about it.
It still is this way now, but I'm just like, man, are these kids safe? And I try to let it go because it's not my child. I can't do anything. It's not really my business. But there is a part of me that's like, man, these are babies walking to school completely alone.
And we may think about it a little more than a lot of people because we watch a lot of CSI.
We got a problem.
Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
But, just thinking about these kids that are walking to school, it's like you need to make sure you're teaching your kids, to be on guard, when a stranger comes up or things that you ought to be looking out for. One of the things you ought to tell your kids is adults do not need children's help to find things. So if an adult is asking a child where to find things like, hey, I lost my dog, or not to take candy from someone you don't know. Mm-hmm. In today's world, strangers offer Happy Meals and Legos and all kinds of stuff. So you don't offer help to strangers. You don't take gifts from people you don't know. And that's part of the process of teaching your kids. And you don't have to tell them, especially when they're small, you don't have to tell them why. Mm-hmm. And maybe they're going to ask why. And, at that point you can, depending on how inquisitive your child is.
Right. But only you as the parent can really know what age to talk about how much. How much do I let them in on?
Because with every kid, their development's going to be a little bit different.
Right. So not every 5-year-old is the same.
Right. What my kid can do at 5, maybe your kid can handle at 4, or not till 8.
Right. Yep. So, but a couple of things that you do want them to know and understand is don't ever get taken to a second location. That's something that I'll tell my girls. I think we started telling them this when they were still elementary, not like 4. But probably like mid-elementary, we were teaching them, do not get taken to a second location. If someone tells you, if you don't come with me and get in my car, I'm going to shoot you, just run. Because most likely if you get in that car, you're done. You're not going to make it. So never get in the car. Never go with them. Scream, you're not my dad. That's what my dad said. Scream cuss words. That's what Thomas said. I don't tell that.
Yeah.
That's not me. I tell them scream, somebody help me, or you're not my dad or something like that. But scream anything, because when kids are screaming, everyone looks. It's just how it works. Go for the eyes, go for the crotch.
Yeah. What's one thing we tell our daughters, like, in this scenario, we're not looking for a fair fight here. This is a fight for survival.
Literally go below the belt, okay?
Yeah.
Go for it. Get away. Remember that one thing you can teach them, especially when they're very, very little, if you can't see me, I can't see you. So teach them that, like when my kids were on the playground, even when they were little, I would be like, you have to stay where mommy can see you. I have to be able to see you. So when you play, you look for me. And if you can see me, you're okay. And they would do that. And that was something we taught them really young. Teach them how to call 911, even when they're little. They need to learn how to use a phone and call 911. Very, very simple thing that your kids should know is don't allow your children to answer the door if you're not home, or even if you're not nearby. So you're in the shower, the doorbell rings. Don't let them answer that door. That's something they need to be taught very, very young. But even all of these little tips that we've just given you are things that you have to decide what age your individual children are able to understand them. So maybe your son is not going to be ready at the same time as your daughter, and vice versa. So just think about what is the right time to let your kids in on this stuff.
And I'm always amazed. We make a lot of visits, being a pastor and dealing with people, we make a lot of visits to people's homes. And it always amazes me how often a child will open up the door. And it's not a situation where mom or dad said, hey, answer the door. Mm-hmm. They just heard the doorbell, heard a knock, somebody was here, open the door, see who it is. Oh, hey, it's Thomas, Lysandra. It always blows my mind.
I know, yeah, it's surprising.
But when your children are younger, it's really important to be delicate about how you talk about this in order that you don't instill a constant fear into them. And you may want to say something to the effect of, there are bad people in the world who may want to hurt you. You cannot trust everyone. Not everyone is kind and good. Mm-hmm. And having those, just being delicate about it. You don't need to be graphic. You don't need to go over the top and make them afraid.
Right. Like you said, we were talking about this episode and getting ready, and you said something to the effect of, just sit your 5-year-old down and have them watch Criminal Minds. And that's the training.
Yeah. Like, child abduction episode.
Yeah. No, that's not exactly what you're going to want to do. They don't have to know all that. But it may be important to define the word stranger to your child. When they're young, they may not understand that term. What is a stranger? Who is a stranger? And so you've got to make sure that your kid knows that a stranger is anyone who's unfamiliar to them, even people who seem friendly.
Yeah.
And there are so many good people in the world, as far as, people who love children and want good things for children and are not going to hurt them.
Well, and even things as simple, you talk about who are unfamiliar to them, and that includes even people who may know us, mm-hmm. or pretend to know us. Somebody says, hey, I'm a friend of your dad. Well, that's fine, but you're not my friend. Like, mm-hmm. I don't know who you are.
Right.
And so just that idea of it's somebody who's unfamiliar to you.
Yeah. And, you really helped me with something that I hadn't considered, because I've always been very obsessive about our kids having good manners and being kind to people and, loving on their grandmas and grandpas and all that kind of stuff. Right. Well, there was a situation when our kids were really little, like 3, 4, 5, in that range. And they were meeting a relative for what for them was the first time that they could remember. And I was like, give them a hug. It's your auntie who, and whatever. And they didn't know them. These were complete strangers, and they did not want to hug this complete stranger. And I was like trying to force them, to be kind and to like be loving toward this person who I love very dearly, but they don't even know. And you said, you corrected me in that moment, and I'm glad you did. You said, don't force them to hug strangers. This is a stranger to them. And what I'm doing is I'm teaching them to hug strangers. They don't understand the difference.
Well, and not even just strangers. Like any physical contact with any person, mm-hmm. if you're not comfortable with.
Yep.
Whether it's a family, because unfortunately, it's most often a family member who is going to abuse or harm a child.
So sad.
So we don't make our kids hug anybody. Physical affection is not required for anybody, mm-hmm. Including us.
Yeah.
Like, we don't make our kids hug and kiss us. We ask, hey, can I have a hug? And they have that free choice. Mm-hmm. We want to teach them that, hey, you have the choice on how you mete out physical affection, because there are relatives who will take advantage of that And so we wanted to teach them from the time that they were young, not just strangers, not just relatives you don't know, but even relatives that you do. If you're not comfortable in that situation, then don't do what's uncomfortable. Don't force an uncomfortable situation.
Right. And let me clarify just briefly that, we don't always say the words, "Can I have a hug?" to our children, but we will put out our arms, and that's a nonverbal way of asking, like, give me a hug. And they, of course, always do at this point. But there may be a time when they're not comfortable doing that and they don't want to hug us or whatever. I just had a conversation with our girls very recently. You may have been in the car with us. I can't remember. You'll be able to tell me if you were. But we were getting a vibe off of somebody that was just creepy. It was a creepy vibe. You've all had it before, where you're just like, something's off about this person. And I told the girls, I said, I just want you to know I get a vibe off of this guy. And I want you to understand you're not going to go anywhere with their family if I'm not with you, because I have this feeling. And they all said, I felt the same way. I felt he was a creeper. And I was like, and we don't know that he's a creeper. He may be a very nice guy who gives off a bad vibe. But I said, we're not going to risk your safety over it. And if you have those feelings, those vibes from people, pay attention to that, because oftentimes that's your spidey sense. And listen to your spidey sense.
And they love Spider-Man, so they got that right away.
So they understood what that meant. But it's okay for your kids not to feel comfortable around somebody. There may be a very good reason that they are that way, but they have to understand, what is a stranger. When they're little and they're teeny tiny, a stranger is someone you don't know. And it might even be helpful for you to tell, like, new relatives who they're just meeting. Maybe you've known them your whole life, but your kids are just meeting these new relatives. Tell them, hey, I'm trying to teach my kids about stranger danger, and right now you're a stranger. So, like, let's just give it a little time or whatever. But explain to your child that if mom and dad says somebody is safe, then it's okay for you to give them a hug if you want to, but you don't have to hug anybody if it makes you feel uncomfortable. You don't have to do that.
And what you say, the age you say it at, and the way you teach your kids about stranger danger is totally up to you. Just do something. Don't just allow your kid to wander around the store and talk to anybody. But do something. And then do it again and again, and just kind of continue. And at different points, we have these different conversations with our daughters, and we continue to have them. We'll continue to have them. And we use things in life, situations or whatever else, to kind of enforce and build upon some of the other things that we've talked about. Even with year after year of reminders, being safe still requires wisdom. Mm-hmm. Being smart, paying attention, setting up safeguards, not being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But unsafe situations can be less risky when stranger danger precautions are ingrained. And as the girls get older, none of them drive by themselves yet. But as they get older and they start driving for themselves and going places alone in that situation, there's other conversations to be had.
Yes.
That, never be looking down at your phone. Mm-hmm. Always have your head up. Always have a way to protect yourself. If you feel uncomfortable, have somebody ask somebody to walk you to your car. There's certain conversations that need to be had and kind of repeated over and over and over again. And just talk about what do we do around strangers. And you keep reminding them, and that helps take the uncertainty out of risky situations. And I love what you said, Lysandra, the other day when we were in the car. And just teaching the girls to listen to those feelings that you have. That no matter who it is, if you get, what they called the creeper vibe, mm-hmm. You get the creeper vibe. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
You listen to it. Mm-hmm. And you do not ever have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Mm-hmm. And talking about it often and reminding it as you drop off to school, go to the park, go shopping, even play around your neighborhood, drop your kids off at a birthday party. it can instill confidence in your child rather than fear. They can develop a confidence knowing that if someone tries to hurt me, I know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm. And I kind of felt that as a child. Like when my dad told me, this is what you do if someone tries to take you, I kind of felt like, oh man, I'm ready. I know exactly what I'm going to do. I got the plan, and I like a plan. I've always liked a plan. So that can actually help your child rather than instill fear. But some other ideas of how to teach stranger danger and what to do, if approached by somebody, you can role play and practice in your home. I think especially when they're little, if we tried to role play with our girls right now, they would just like giggle and be like, this is so stupid because they're older.
Yeah.
But when they're younger, you could practice like, if somebody comes up to you and does this, what will you say?
Hey, I lost my dog. Can you help me find it?
He's really, really cute. Yeah. You can create a family code word. And I think this is a cool idea to create a family code word. So we're going to go ahead and say pudding because Thomas loves pudding.
I do like pudding.
And usually when we play Pictionary, if he can't figure out what it is, he screams.
Pudding.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that word does not come up a lot in our everyday conversation because
I'm sorry about that.
We don't have a lot of pudding around here.
No, we don't. We need to...
It's a perfect code word.
We need to get rid of some vegetables and add more pudding in our lives.
I agree. Yes.
I knew you'd agree with that.
Instead of a side of vegetables with every meal, we have different puddings to choose from.
Okay. So say your family code word is pudding. Then anyone who comes and picks up your child has to say pudding before the kid gets in the car. Like, because you think about it, even if you have a friend, like maybe you have a neighbor who's a really good close friend that you trust and you're late at work, you've got to have your neighbor go pick up the kid from school. But I don't know, maybe the school office knows, but the child doesn't. Okay, pudding, and the kid gets in the car, whatever. All right. So another thing that you can do is identify safe adults like police officers. And this is someone who you can go to if you sense danger. You can go to this police officer. That also makes me a little nervous because I watch too much TV. Because like TV,
Yeah.
where they're like in the uniform, but they're not a real cop, and then they're bad people. So I don't like that.
Yeah, the circumstances of that actually happening are pretty slim.
I hope so.
You hope there's not a bunch of fake cops out there.
Yeah, I'm like keeping one eye on the cop. But you can also explain to your child that if they get lost, they should find another mom. Like just tell your little one, find a mommy who has other kids and ask her to help you find your mommy. Because that's a pretty safe bet if you find a family. Make guidelines for being at home. Whether you're, in the shower or away, maybe they're at the age where, okay, we're leaving you home alone for this amount of time. Make those guidelines really, really well defined.
Yeah.
There's no question. This is what I can do. This is what I can't do. I can't take the trash out to the trash can while mom and dad are gone. I don't know how many kids are doing that.
Yeah,
but,
not many probably.
But that was something that we told our kids because it was their job to take out the trash. And when it was full, they were supposed to do it. So it's like, don't do that when we're gone.
Don't go outside.
Don't go outside. Don't unlock the door. Not for anybody. We're like, even if you see Miss So-and-so from church, we love her so much. Are you allowed to let her in? No, ma'am. Very good. Just all of that. It's a flat out, no one gets in the door. Don't even go to the door. In fact, when they were little, remember, and we first started leaving them at home alone, we told them if the doorbell rings, don't even go look to see who it is. Because if it's us, we're not going to ring the doorbell. We're going to use our key and come in. Don't even go look because we didn't want people to be able to see through the window. Oh, there's kids in there. So they were just to stay out of the line of sight from the doors.
And I think we actually rang the doorbell a couple times to see if they would or not.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's good. We did. And they obeyed. They did not come to the door. They didn't even peek.
Yeah.
Yeah. We gave them, I think we brought home ice cream as a reward, for obeying the rules.
Like you did it. And that was when we were just testing it out. Like, hey, Hy-Vee, which is a local grocery store up there, is a few blocks away. We're gonna the two of us, go to the grocery store and pick up a couple of things and kind of test the waters out. So it was like, okay, let's make sure they're hearing what we're saying.
Yeah. And then we did a phone call too. We called them right away because the rule was if we call, you answer.
Yep.
So then we did a little test phone call to make sure, are they going to answer the phone if we call them?
Yep. Left the cell phone at home with them.
And they did good.
And honesty is the best policy when it comes to talking about stranger danger. Kids are a lot stronger than we give them credit for. Now, use wisdom. Obviously, you know your kid better than I do, okay? So we're not giving you any like hard and fast rules. When they're this age, tell them this. Okay, you know your child. You know what they can and should be able to tolerate. So use wisdom. Ask God for guidance about how much information your child's ready for each year. But know that you don't need to baby them all the time. You know, even when they were young, we let them know, hey, there are people who do take children. Now, we didn't go into a lot of details and things like that, but they understood the concept. So you do need to watch out for people. You know, talk to them as one person to another. And tell them they need to be responsible for protecting themselves. It's something they have to learn along the way. Just as we learn to, you know, brush our own teeth and put on deodorant and do our own work and those sorts of things. Hey, you need to learn how to take responsibility to the best of your ability to keep yourself safe.
And when your children get a little older, you can be more specific and explain the truth about, you know, what is happening in sex trafficking. It's real, guys. Sex trafficking is happening. Maybe you need to become educated. You know?
Yeah.
I am absolutely a bury my head in the sand kind of person. That's why I married Thomas. Just kidding. That's not why I married you.
Nice.
But it's been a help.
Buried your head in the sand and we're like, oh, well, I'll just marry this dude.
Oh, no, that's not what I meant. But yeah. No, but he keeps me informed on the things that he thinks that I need to know. And other than that, I don't want to know anything. But honestly, like when you hear the truth about sex trafficking, it is unbelievably disturbing. And it's disheartening that it's real. But like our kids know what sex trafficking is, our older girls. Explain that kidnapping is real. Stalkers are real. Rape. They need to understand what that is at a certain age. And it's very important to consider the age and maturity level of each child you're talking to. Our older three, they know what sex trafficking is. They understand what rape is. They understand how some of that sex trafficking operates and what to do. But another thing is to understand yourself and to teach your child is that boys are not safe just because they're boys.
Right.
So I think sometimes, and maybe this isn't as prevalent as it maybe used to be, but boys get taken just like girls do. Boys get abducted. Boys get raped. Like if you have sons, teach your sons. Don't be like, oh, they're safe because they're a boy. That is not true. But think about what you need to let your kids in on. How much do they need to know? How much do they need to understand? I'm a 37-year-old woman, but I need to know the dangers of sex trafficking. I need to understand how to protect myself. It's not just little children who are getting taken. So no matter what age your child is, even if they're getting older, they're 18. 18-year-olds get abducted. You know, we need to make sure that they understand how to protect themselves and be safe and have the information of what is happening in our world, no matter their age, and especially into adulthood.
And one of the things that you can do when they're younger is you can ask questions to find out what's going on in their life without them even knowing what you're asking or why you're asking. You know, I think about a circumstance we had when the girls were very young. We had somebody who was in our extended sphere get accused of some stuff having to do with kids. And our girls had been around that person. And so we just kind of had some conversations with them like, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? And kind of listen to what they said. Ask them certain questions like, hey, when you're around this person, do you ever just like sit on their lap? Or, you know, certain questions where a 4 or 5-year-old kid doesn't think twice about why you're asking those questions. They're just answering them. But you know why you're asking the questions and can get information that you might need to get.
I would also say, though, make sure you're not asking leading questions.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because kids can sense when they're being led to answer a certain way and they want to please you. So be careful of that too, because you could open up a can of worms that never should have been opened.
And another way to broach the conversation, very easy way with your kids, is doctor's appointments. They're having at least yearly exams depending on who they are, or who your kids are, and what's going on in their life health-wise. So every time there's a doctor's appointment, then you have a natural and organic way to check in on them and give them an opportunity to tell if someone hurt them. And it's a better way to bring up the topic than just talking about the horrible things that people do to children out of the blue.
Yeah. Let's go on a bike ride. Hey, guys, children get kidnapped and sex trafficked. Wow.
So, things as simple as teaching your children what the medical term for their body parts are
that's
is one
important.
thing. So if something does happen, they know exactly what to say, how to describe it. But whenever our children have a doctor's appointment, we remind them that it's okay for the doctor at the checkup to check them out, to look at their parts of their body for two reasons. One reason is because mommy's in the room with them always.
Yep.
So they know they're safe. And the other reason is because this is a doctor. And a medical exam is safe, especially when your mom is in the room. And even walking them through, okay, this is what the doctor is going to do. This is what's appropriate. If the doctor does this, this is not appropriate. So having some of those conversations with them, and that can lead into conversations, about other things and other people.
Right. And we take those annual doctor's appointments as not only just an opportunity to remind them of what is safe, what is okay, what isn't okay. If someone does this, this is wrong, all of that. But also to say, this is our opportunity to say, has anyone else looked at you where they shouldn't? Has anyone else done anything inappropriate with you? Is the doctor the only one who's checked you out in this place? And this is just an opportunity that we can ask them if they feel safe. Do you feel safe around the people you spend time with? Is there anyone that makes you feel uncomfortable? And this is just a natural thing. They're probably dreading doctor's appointments every year because of the conversations that I have with them. And usually, just so everybody understands, when I say we, it's really me. I'm having conversations with the girls. I'm going to guess if we had boys, you would have the conversation.
Yeah.
But we never got that opportunity, so everything falls on my shoulders.
Thank you, Jesus, for that,
It
by
is
the way.
very unfortunate for this mom, girl mom. But it's important at these annual checkups or other doctor's visits to just open up the discussion. This is a natural time to open a discussion. We're talking about their body. They're having to get dressed down into the robe. They're having to be checked in places that they wouldn't normally be checked. So it's just a natural opportunity. But it also provides that annual check-in with your child. And that's what they call it, right? It's a well-child check. That's what we're doing emotionally too. It's a well-child check. Are you well? Are you okay? Is there anything that we can catch? And the hope, of course, is that if anything negative is happening to your child, you would catch it quickly and be able to protect them for it, put a stop to it and protect them.
And we should be teaching our children safety. Every single one of us should be doing this. Should be talking about strangers, checking up on their safety, providing opportunities to tell us if someone has hurt them. These are all things, and we want to use the day-to-day things that are happening in life and around us to be able to have these conversations, to equip our kids to be able to handle the things that happen to them.
Yeah, and I think as we do these annual well-child check-ins or monthly check-ins, however often you feel like you need to check in with your kid. But as you keep that communication, that line of communication open, if, God forbid, something does happen to them, they're already comfortable talking to you about it because this is a regular thing we talk about. And so I know that I've heard from other people where they were hurt as a child and never went to talk to their parents because they didn't talk to their parents about anything, let alone this. This wasn't a subject they even could figure out how to bring up. But if you've got those lines of communication already open and flowing, then it's going to be a lot easier for your child to come to you and say, Mom, I think something bad happened to me. Is this okay? Because those lines of communication are already open.
And so talking about a family meeting tonight, I want you just to kind of sit down and spend some time talking with your kids about strangers. And depending on how old they are, you may have to have conversations about who is a stranger, like who to watch out for. What do we do if somebody approaches them? Talk about what to do if someone tries to take them. What happens if somebody does try to grab you and pull you out of a store or out of a sporting event? Or maybe you need to have some conversations. Hey, has anybody hurt you? Be proactive about your family's safety. And I know this is not a fun topic to talk about. Mm-mm. This is not like we're talking about, hey, birthday parties or family vacations.
Yeah.
But it's really important as far as the well-being of your children to have these conversations, to begin to equip them how to evaluate the people in their life, the situations in their life. Because unfortunately, I'm not always going to be there to protect my daughters. I'm not going to be with them in every circumstance, in every situation. I can't be. So one of my responsibilities as a parent, one of your responsibilities as a parent, is try to equip them with appropriate information at appropriate ages so that they can begin to learn to evaluate the things that are going on in their life.
Thanks for joining us today on this episode about stranger danger. Please go and subscribe to the Family Meeting podcast from your favorite podcast provider. And if you found this information to be helpful, please share this episode on social media and invite your friends and family to listen in with you.
To find more content and information Lysandra and I provide, you can go to our website, familymeeting.org. We've got a lot of different things on there, including our speaking schedule. So come see us at an event that may be in your area, or if you want to invite us to speak about marriage and family at one of your events, feel free to email us at info@familymeeting.org. Or maybe you want to shoot us a text or give us a phone call, and that'd be at 904-257-3062.
And we want to invite you to join us for our next family meeting as we talk about trying to change your spouse. Everyone will want to tune in as I talk about how I've worked for years at changing my spouse, and you should too.
Okay. Here we go.
I love you, honey.
Thanks for joining us today for this family meeting. Have a great week, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.
Okay, so to all of our YouTubers, to Thomas, what I've realized during episode 104 is that these podcast episodes are my therapy.
Yeah, seriously.
And I just realized, why I've been afraid of fire for my whole life. That story, This whole episode, that, picture that I've had in my head since I was a little girl was kind of, in there. And I was, trying to get it out of my head.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the things we talked about in the episode was even at doctor's appointments, explaining to your kids what it's okay for the doctor to do, what's not okay. I think of this big story that came out a couple years ago about the doctor of all these gymnasts.
Right, yep.
And how that even though parents often were in the room, he was violating them. And so having conversations about what is appropriate for a doctor to do, what's not appropriate. And then as parents, man, when our kids tell us something makes them uncomfortable or doesn't feel right, not just to blow it by, but to take it seriously. Man, such a heavy topic today.
Yeah.
Not a fun topic, but a really important topic. And I hope that something has been kind of helpful for you today. If you have some tips and some suggestions about how to have these conversations with your kids, hey, put it in the comments there. We'd love to hear about it and be able to pass on some of those things to some of our other listeners. With that, I hope that you guys have a great week. We've got a lot to do, and it's time for us to get going. See you later.